The bus rattled to a stop, jolting me back to the reality of my empty stomach. Tonight was ramen. Again, college life promised liberation, not chronic hunger. Sighing, I glanced at my phone, a flicker of hope igniting on the screen. A Craigslist ad. Its cryptic nature both alluring and unsettling, promised an escape from the tyranny of instant noodles. Warehouse job, overnight shift, stay until sunrise, $500 cash. $500 for one night? Easy, right? My logical mind scoffed, but the gnawing in my belly spoke louder. Pushing doubts aside, I texted Sarah, my roommate and resident scaredy-cat. Heading to an abandoned warehouse for a job, texting you location, just in case. Hitting send, a wave of unease washed over me. The warehouse district wasn't exactly a walk in the park, especially at dusk, but the thought of feasting on something besides watery noodles steeled my resolve. The taxi driver, a weathered man with a skeptical glint in his eyes, dropped me off at the edge of the industrial sector. The warehouse loomed ahead, a skeletal silhouette against the dying orange light of the setting sun. Its vacant windows seemed to stare back with an accusing emptiness. A cold wind whipped around me, tugging at my thin jacket, sending shivers down my spine. This was a bad idea. I could feel it in my gut. A primal scream lodged in my throat, but the promise of hot food and a full stomach was a powerful motivator. Taking a deep breath, I approached the towering structure, its corrugated metal exterior casting an unsettlingly long shadow. The rusty door groaned in protest as I pushed it open, releasing a cloud of dust motes that danced in the slivers of moonlight filtering through broken windows. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp earth and forgotten things, a pungent melange that instantly sent my senses into overdrive. Silence, an oppressive, unnatural silence that seemed to press against my eardrums. Then, a creak, a slow, agonizing moan from somewhere within the cavernous space. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I inched forward, each step echoing in the vast emptiness. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and shrouded in a dark cloak that seemed to devour the moonlight. The figure spoke, their voice a raspy whisper devoid of warmth. "You're Kimberly?" I swallowed, my own voice a dry squeak. "Yes. The rules are simple," the figure continued, their face obscured by the hood. "Stay inside until sunrise. Do not leave this warehouse under any circumstances. If you follow these rules, you get your money." A heavy object thudded at my feet. I peered down to see a worn leather satchel. A metallic clink confirmed the promised cash. "There's a cot in the corner," the figure rasped. "Don't stray." They faded back into the darkness with a chilling finality. Alone in the desolate warehouse, the silence pressed in, broken only by the erratic thump of my own heart. Fear, cold and sharp, prickled at my skin. I huddled on the cot, the scratchy fabric offering little comfort. Sleep seemed an impossible dream. Every creak, every groan of the building sent shivers down my spine. My eyes darted around the dim space, searching for the source of every sound, every shadow. Was this a horrible mistake? A desperate glance at my phone screen confirmed my worst fear. No signal. Isolated, trapped, and completely alone. A single thought echoed in my mind. What have I gotten myself into? Time crawled. Each tick of my internal clock seemed amplified in the suffocating silence of the warehouse. Every creak of the building, every groan of unseen metal, sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system. I strained my ears, desperate to identify the source of each sound, my eyes darting around the darkness like a cornered animal. Then, I heard it, a whisper, soft, barely audible, yet distinct amidst the oppressive silence. It seemed to originate from everywhere and nowhere at once, a chilling caress against my eardrums. "Kim, BRLY. The sound sent a fresh wave of terror crashing over me. My breath hitched, and a cold sweat slicked my skin. The whisper came again, closer this time, laced with a faint echo that bounced off the distant walls. Panic gnawed at my sanity. I scrambled off the cot, heart hammering a frantic tattoo against my ribs. The source of the whisper remained elusive, but the feeling of unseen eyes watching me intensified. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the far corner caught my eye. My breath caught in my throat. There, bathed in a sliver of moonlight filtering through a high window, stood a figure. It was large, misshapen, and vaguely humanoid, crafted from a coarse, burlap-like material. Its stitched limbs hung limply at its sides. Its vacant eyes, black buttons sewn onto the fabric, seemed to stare directly at me, following my every move. For a fleeting moment, I convinced myself it was just a trick of the light, a forgotten prop from some long-abandoned production. Relief, warm and fleeting, washed over me. But then, the figure moved. A single, jerky step, its body swaying unnaturally, the stitched mouth stretched into a grotesque parody of a grin, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth. A primal scream ripped from my throat, a sound raw with fear. The puppet, its grin widening impossibly, lurched forward, taking another unsteady step towards me. In that moment, the warehouse, once a place of unsettling silence, erupted into a cacophony of sound. The floorboards groaned under the puppet's weight, its ragged breaths a rasping counterpoint to the pounding of my own heart. There was no time for deliberation. Driven by pure, unadulterated terror, I turned and bolted. The puppet's rasping breaths and the rhythmic thud of its uneven steps echoed behind me, fueling my desperate flight. I didn't know where I was running, just that I needed to put as much distance between me and the monstrous puppet as possible. The darkness became a labyrinth, each turn revealing more shadows, more dust, and the ever-present sound of the puppet's relentless pursuit. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but the primal fear coursing through me propelled me forward. I had no plan, no idea where I was going in this labyrinth of dust and shadows. Every turn revealed another desolate corridor. Every nook and cranny seemed to hold a hidden horror. But one thing was clear, I couldn't let the puppet catch me. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced the darkness ahead. Hope, a fragile ember, ignited in my chest. Could it be? No, it couldn't be. Not yet. But as I pushed forward, stumbling over debris and kicking aside dusty crates, the light grew stronger. It was faint, barely a sliver, but it was there, sunlight. With a renewed surge of energy, I sprinted towards the light, the puppet's enraged shrieks echoing off the warehouse walls behind me. The air grew cooler, a faint breeze tickling my sweat-soaked skin. Dawn. It had to be dawn. The light intensified, revealing the silhouette of a doorway at the end of the corridor. My salvation. Bursting through the doorway, I stumbled out onto a deserted street. The first golden rays of dawn were painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, chasing away the last vestiges of night. I collapsed onto the cold pavement, gasping for breath. Behind me, the warehouse loomed like a malevolent giant, its broken windows like empty eyes staring into the distance. The puppet, thankfully, was nowhere to be seen. Tears streamed down my face, a mixture of relief and terror. I had escaped, but at what cost? The memory of the unliving puppet's grotesque grin and its relentless pursuit sent shivers down my spine. As the sun climbed higher, bathing the scene in a warm, golden light, a single thought echoed in my mind. The promised money suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the horrors I had just witnessed. This warehouse, this job, it had been a terrible mistake. But one thing was certain, I wouldn't be eating ramen for a long time. The memory of the puppet's haunting shrieks would forever taint anything remotely resembling instant noodles. I would find a way, any way, to avoid ever returning to this place, to this chilling reminder of the night the warehouse whispered its secrets, and a monstrous puppet came to life.